Hi, Katrina. So I'm really excited to have you in this conversation. Just to give a bit of an introduction about you. So Katrina is a counselor helping migrants in Australia to grow themselves and also understand and acknowledge their emotional barriers and achieve their personal well-being. So I'm really super excited to have you in this call, and then I'm sure a lot of people will get some value out of this conversation. She's also running her own counseling business, Reframe Counseling, which is with a passion of helping migrants achieve their best lives here. So, without further ado, let me dive into kind of a topic. So, the topic for today is understanding common emotional and challenges. It could be practical challenges that migrants face here in Australia in terms of job search and life, and hopefully we'll can address some deeper emotional barriers that they face with your insights and experience as well. So the first topic is the local experience myth. Now, you and I know, Kat, I mean, me being a migrant, starting my career here back in 10 years ago now. So this year, I'll be coming into 10 years.
Yeah.
I have
Okay. Wow.
faced, yeah, I've faced this I would say common misconception of that you can't land your first professional job without having local experience. I would like to ask you, based on your experience working with many migrants, like how do you perceive this?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one, Pan, and of course we'll get into your experience. It's I mean, I guess it's not fair to say that it's a myth because it does exist and people do use it. But what I find the myth behind it is that it's not 100% true. And I think I've used this before, but it's like it is true in some roles, but not many. For example, if you're going to be a bus driver in Parramatta, like it's going to be helpful to know the streets, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're doing computer programming, well, what do you need local knowledge for there? So it can be used as something that, because it's kind of, look, I'm going to say it's accepted discrimination, the way it's like, oh well, you don't have local knowledge, and that's a way that people go, oh okay, fair enough, like it's accepted for people to say that, but it can be a thing of people, it's like a get out of jail free card, like an easy way. And I'm so sorry if I say things that don't make any sense to you. Please check with me because it may just be an Australian slang or saying I'm using. So when I said get out of jail free card,
Oh, that's funny. I mean, like, I can relate to it so much, and I 100% agree, Katrina. Relating to my experience now, like being a migrant, struggling to find my first professional job here for 6, 7 months, and going through rejections of like more than 500. I've heard this a lot, and I've experienced myself, like why is so common, and it's kind of you get to internalize this when you go through this concept. But I understand for some industries, as you said, I love the term you use, accepted discrimination, because for some industries, like industries such as which are like highly regulated, for an example, food safety or a
yeah,
civil
yeah,
engineer construction, right?
yeah,
You do
yeah.
need to know the industry standards. Otherwise, it's a risk for
Exactly.
someone to give you a job.
That's
So,
true. Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that you can't get a job without having that knowledge. So it's you as a migrant instilling that growth mindset of how can I really learn this? Am I just undermining my skills and making myself like a zero level just because I don't have this industry know-how? Or am I putting myself out there to learn this through a certification, through connecting with other professionals? There's always way to learn to showcase. And in terms of practicality, what I find now as a career coach,
Yeah.
working with recruiters, hiring managers, and employers, understanding what their feedback around, okay, why do they don't hire? what
Yeah.
what are the challenges for them? It comes down to two. First one is risks perception, right? So for an employer, I would look at what are the risks of hiring a migrant with no local experience. It comes down to culture, their communication, and adaptability, right, to their workplace, which is fair enough. So constantly they're looking at how easy this hire is going to be if I give this person an interview, or if I hire this person. And the second time is they are not convinced enough of the value that they are going to bring in. So that part is one I think that migrants struggle with, Kat. I personally struggle to clearly
Yeah.
articulate my value. right? Because I find myself, okay, I don't have this experience. All I have is some overseas experience, which doesn't matter. And I come here, I start new. This is what my friends say, and I walk into an interview thinking I'm a newbie. So when I ask, like, you don't have local experience, I say no. And I commit to that answer without trying to articulate that how can I bring transferable skills, what are my problem solving skills that I can still solve the same problem. And
Yeah.
so that mindset is a key factor in improving your conversions, especially around the local experience question. For an
Hugely.
example, yeah.
Hugely. Yeah. So I just heard you say one word, and this is the counselor in me that hears things and wants to explain and dig a bit deeper. You said, I just come here and I just have overseas experience and that doesn't matter. And that's not true. Of course it matters. It does matter, right? You have experience, and it really is a blanket term, like local experience, because as we're just discussing right now, it's actually like, is that local as in like what the laws or regulations are? Is that local as in like where I live? Do I need to know? So there actually is a lot. And your experience overseas, like, of course it matters. It definitely matters. And I think that's a huge thing about this belief of, local knowledge matter, is that you use the word internalized. And I think it's really true. A lot of people use it as a way to point to, oh, that must be why I'm not getting the X, Y, or Z. That's got to be the reason, is because I don't have local knowledge. And then you start operating with that belief. And so you don't apply for the things that you think you should anyway, because you're like, they're not going to hire me. They want local knowledge.
That's really interesting because that I relate to myself again, like internalizing that belief, and then it can take you in a very, like a spiral, because then it impacts your day-to-day life as a migrant, because like you're constantly trying to get to a job, but also you're struggling and fighting with your own beliefs. You challenge your own self-worth because you have this belief internalized in you that I'm not going to be able to land a job with no local experience. How do you think that will like influences like someone's life in general apart from job search, Kat? Like I'm keen to
Yeah, I
get your
mean,
insights.
it's all related, and it's just like, I even as you're talking, I felt like going like this, because it's like you believe it and then you apply it, and then it's like punch after punch, right? And it does. How do you go through being not even, you're just internalizing these voices? You start to treat yourself as if you're not worthy. You start to act as if you're not worthy. And we love to think that we can only have one thing in part of our lives, but it's just not true. If you're not happy at work, it's going to flow onto your life. And that may be that, or you're looking for a job and you're not happy with the search. It's going to affect you everywhere, because we these beautiful humans that we are, we carry around our thoughts wherever we are. And our mind doesn't say, right, well, this is home time now, so I'll just be happy. It doesn't work like that.
I mean, yeah, when you were explaining, I was just taking myself back to 10 years ago, like, stuck in a small room in a shared house, and then constantly trying to think how I'm going to get out of it. And then like it was just that awareness was not there within me, because that thought was in, like, I just identified with my thought, thinking that I don't deserve this, because I was continuously thinking that I can't really get a job offer without no local experience. Even if I did get an interview, I still believe that local experience is the barrier. So I
Yeah.
forgot to reinforce the positive side of me making progress. Like in an interview, from a rejection phase to an interview, I still said I didn't get through the job offer because I don't have local experience and not worth enough. So I think
Right. Yeah.
it's a very valid topic that we are talking about, and one tactic that I can suggest is, especially in your conversations, that help me and my clients too. Like when someone's bring up this topic, like this question, you don't have local experience, you can ask questions, you can respond in a
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
Ask, look, are you looking for someone with a experience that aligns with your culture, or someone who can add value to this role through this skill? Because I have done XBC things in my previous role, and which I am confident about, bringing to this company, right? So that question, I feel that migrants are hesitant to ask immediately, because they are so identified with the thought and they are in the back seat. They just say, I don't have local experience, but
Yeah,
I'm willing to work on it. That is not strong enough for the risk factor.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, really, like it actually is true. It's like you don't have local experience. It's actually
That's it.
true. Like if
That's
I
it.
went anywhere else in the world, I wouldn't have local experience anywhere. But it's the meaning we assign to it. We hear that and we think, oh my God, I worked so hard. I finally got the visa. Like I've come here and I am never going to get anywhere because I don't have any local experience. And, I'm thinking about you 10 years ago in this shared house, just thinking, it's never going to work out. And we have a tendency to really believe that what's happening in this very moment is everything. And it's just part of the journey. It's just like even coming to Australia, like this probably started, even if you've landed today, it didn't just start today. It's already been going on for a long time and it will continue to go on for a long time. So it's okay. This is part of it. And like you said, you've got to ask questions because what you're doing is actually for you. And so it can actually be helpful in a way because if a company is saying this and actually they've got an awful culture and you really don't want to work with them, they could actually be doing you a favor, and when you ask those more questions to really find out what does that mean? Like, what do you mean when you say that? And don't say it in the way of like, yeah, what do you mean? Like, tell me, don't go all aggressive because it's never going to help. But you can certainly say, oh, I'm not really sure what that means. Like, is there some way that I can, like you said, is there ways that I can, get this? Is it something that you are going to need for other roles that you're applying for? So maybe it's applicable to say, oh, okay, but they actually just meant that it was actually within the team. And so when you find out a little bit more information, it helps you because we are, as humans, we love to assign stories to everything. And if the person hasn't told us a full story, we make it up. And it's always negative. No one ever goes for the, oh my goodness, I didn't get the job because I'm just too good and they could not see me working in this role. I've never had anyone say that to me. It's always, oh, I don't think I could do it, or they don't see me as part of the team. I don't fit in. It's always negative. So any inch of information you can help to actually build a picture around the truth and not just your story is helpful and absolutely something that you can do.
Well said, Katrina. I mean, I don't know how well did you put that into words, because it reminded me of this famous quote, I think one of the Greek philosophers, that we suffer in imagination than reality, right? It's always, most of the time as humans, we interpret the stories based on the negative experience, especially around the negative side. So one negative experience, you tend to go in that interpreting stories around your life, which is sometimes an imagination than the truth.
Yeah,
So take a step to seek truth rather than just judging
exactly.
yourself, right?
Yeah,
I think
because ultimately you want to feel better. Why do you want to make yourself feel bad? Why do we do that? But we actually do it just to say, so we actually do it. Humans, our brains have a negativity bias because it's quicker for our brain to interpret danger and to put us into action or inaction than it is for us to think about something nice. So if I'm looking at something and thinking, oh my God, I think that that's a fire, let me run away, like I'm going to be safe, rather than me going, oh, look, that's so pretty. I wonder what that's like. Is that hot? Oh my God, I'm burnt, right? And so this is how humans work. So you have to help yourself to actually beat that negativity bias, because we already know, like, it's rigged, things are going to go back towards the negative.
That's such great insights, Katrina. I mean, that leads me to the next question, I think, which is closely connected. Like, it's another kind of a common challenge that a lot of migrants face. I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but this is the well-meaning advice, right? I mean, I can tell a story about this, right? So when I started like my journey here, I moved in with my mate. So he was really kind to help me crash in his place until I find another spot. So I come from a Southeast Asian culture, and I find that these cultures, whether it's African, Middle Eastern, or Latin American cultures, are like collectivist cultures. So we associate ourselves in more community driven cultures. And one of the first things, I think it's the second day, he told me, hey mate, I know that you come here with full working rights, but you have to get into cleaning and find a part-time job. This is what you have to do. You can't find a job without having any local experience. Now, I was not a student. I came here with full working rights, and I'm
Wow.
grateful. I'm grateful to have that
Wow.
opportunity. But still, the very next
Yeah.
day, I started sending my resumes to cleaning companies, like part-time jobs. I'm grateful for the experiences that I've got in that. I've got to know a lot of people. Like I'm still in contact with them. Every job I respect, but I didn't question his judgment. Rather, I just listened to it because I felt emotional safety around my friend's advice, and I trusted him because he has just been in this country for 3 4 years. That was the only factor that I considered before me taking a decision. So I have not done any self research. I have not had that idea of like at least doing some self, like in any taking any risks by myself. I just went with it,
Yeah.
right? So I'm keen to understand. So I just it created a comfort zone for me for months, that I was just doing something where I was just, moving away from landing a full time job in the professional I came here for. So I lost 3 4 months because of that. And when hiring managers asked me in that interview, I struggled to answer that question, because then I
Mm.
realized went through what my friends asked me to do. I went through with this advice. I find this happening with a lot of these migrant cultures, especially around the cultures I mentioned. But I'm keen to hear your insights on what are the deep rooted fears or barriers, emotional elements that contributes to taking advice, well-meaning advice.
Yeah. Bless your friend. He really was just wanting you to be safe and, like he just wanted the best for you. And I think it's not that, yes, in collective cultures, it's sort of maybe the information is shared a bit more. And so that's why you might see it happen like that. You said it. You just said creating a comfort zone. Again, that's what we're trying to do. It's like, let's just do something that's not too difficult. And if you've never been taught to question things, like just because you've come to a country where that is more common, not gonna just happen for you overnight. So you're
That's
still
true.
carrying these things that you were taught by other people, and you've probably just not even noticed it. But that kind of sharing, or that well-meaning advice has been something that you've probably grown up a lot with, and you've seen it. And so it was like, oh, okay, well, he's been here for a while. Look, you're probably tired. You've come to a new country, like you don't know how things are. I can see the appeal in like when someone says to you, hey, do this, it's pretty easy to get a job, like it'll be okay. I can see the appeal in wanting to do that. So I can totally understand. And it's all from this safety. But man, that well-meaning advice, I tell you, it's very well-meaning. But that's not what anybody moves to a different country for, I don't think. It's not. And often it comes from people's own experiences, and maybe they are a bit scared themselves and they project that onto you through advice. So they can say things like, apply for this job, or, don't apply for the level that you're at. You better apply a couple of levels under, or that it is really well meaning, but it's advice, and that's it. And that one can take a little while because, like I said, it's a belief also that's held to be like, well, why would this person give me bad advice? Of course, I'm going to listen to them. They're my friend. And so that unquestioned, and I think what I've seen people before is struggling with feeling like they're questioning somebody rather than just the situation, because they're two different things. You can question and like kind of be rude to somebody or question them as a person, or you can be like, just question the advice. That's interesting. Thanks so much. Let me see how, because that person maybe they have 10% of things the same as you, but the other 90% of things are so different that's like, why are you taking that advice anyway? And they're not the same as who you are, and they don't have the same dreams or goals, or just even, they don't have the same things around them or the support systems. It can come down to so many different things. And so that advice really, it should be taken as advice.
That is really insightful, because when I think about it, I feel that there's only one person like you, right? As you said, there are commonalities. Of course, when you come from certain
Yeah,
cultures, you bring certain shared values and some qualities, maybe in the technical skill level as well. But definitely, it's not 100%. So the way your success, you can't really evaluate based on someone else saying the same thing. And that is a really good advice that you shared, Katrina, especially when you get advice from this community. They might have gone through the same struggle to get to where they are right now. So they might project their experience on them. And if you follow that subconsciously, that you will get into that scarcity thinking than opportunity. So
exactly.
that's I
Totally.
find, yeah.
And sometimes you could like that scarcity thinking, it might not even be yours. It's actually like it belongs to the other person and you should probably give it back to them. Because it's actually not your, like, do I even think this? Because it's amazing. Even twins are not the same. Even sometimes I think I've got two brothers and I think, how was I born into this family? We're so different.
Yep. Yep.
It's amazing. Like everything, I'm like, we've got the same parents. How did this happen?
That itself is a prime example from human biology, right? One evolutionary like, it's still, you can be coming from the same mother's womb, but still you can be different. So why should you take
Exactly.
advice from someone else just because they are from the same culture, or that person is your friend? You should
Yep.
always question it, challenge it if it may, and then try to take, like, actions based on your, intuition, or based on your research. That's what I find that has worked for me later on in the career, when I was progressing in my, in the career here. So I've always tried to, I took advice, I've had mentors, I have experts, also friends, but when I took advice, I always questioned it and then tried to do my own research before taking action.
Definitely. And I think a simple action is just, if you like, where do you want to go? If you're very clear on where you want to be, or what, not even, it doesn't have to be a full path, but like, what's the objective? If your objective is just to come and live in a different country, like, then maybe that job would be suitable. But if it's to advance your career, then why would you take a job that's not in that career path?
100%.
So it can be quite simple. Just ask yourself, like, does this move me towards what I want, or is it moving me further away? That's it. There doesn't have to be any more drama than that. It's just, is this going to move me forward, or is it going to move me back?
Love when you simplify like that. I wish I had someone like you helping me asking these questions, before I jumped into this advice and, just taking advice from other people. But it's just such goal advice. And moving on to the other one is, like, I think one of the other common parts which is connected is taking a couple of steps back. Right. I think we discussed lightly in the last question as well. I find now, when I'm helping a lot of migrant job seekers who come here, who had very successful careers back home, again, they immediately assume that they have to start two levels below or take a step back in their career. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a chance landing a job here. Now, let me add a bit of, like, insights into it. Sometimes, yes, you have to be a bit more strategic if you are doing it intentionally.
Yep.
Then it makes sense, because yeah, you sometimes you have been a manager or senior leadership, having a senior leadership position back home, and then you need to have local experience, at least get to know the know-how. You need to take a couple of steps back. That is a strategic move, but I don't find that often. It's more like you take that, it's more automatic. You
Yep.
immediately think, soon as you set foot in a new country, Australia, I can't get the same job as I had, what I did before.
Yeah,
Why do you
yeah,
think, what
absolutely.
influences this?
Yeah, and I should just be, and I'm just so happy to have jobs. Like, who am I to ask for more? Which is, just robs everybody, I think, because Australia doesn't get to experience your amazing abilities, and you don't feel fulfilled. And I'm not saying you personally, but this is for anyone, right? It's like nobody wins in this situation when you play lower. I completely agree with you. If it's a strategy of taking 2 steps forward so that you can go 2 steps back so you can go 4 steps forward, go for it. Like, that strategy. Like you said, I don't see that much either. I see it more as a resignation, like, oh, I guess I'll just have
Yeah.
to do this, and then it's like, it's okay and it's not that bad, so I might as well just do this, and it plays safe, and then it ends up perpetuating the myth, because you do that and then you tell your friends or your relatives, and then they do the same thing, and then you get the job and it's like, see, I told you that's what you had to do. And it's like there's not even enough people actually taking the risk to really confirm if that's even true. But my suspicion is that it's not. It's not true. It's not a necessity to do this step down or this, it screams to me of like, please like me, like I'll be a little bit smaller for you if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's human nature. It goes back to the safety, playing it safe, not being too big. And we could talk, more also about different beliefs, that it's all connected to your self-belief as well. Where you think like, oh, I guess maybe I couldn't really do it. I mean, deep down, you could. You definitely know you could, but you just shove that part of you down, hoping that it doesn't ever pop up again. And it's like, the thing is, it ends up being, it's like, it's okay. It's comfortable. You get an okay money. Why rock the boat now? Actually, maybe I will just stay at this level. It's not so bad anyway. You don't have to manage people in this, all the things that we come up with, that we tell ourselves that the reason that we're not going in for that higher level.
Wow. I think the safety is the key word, Kat.
It really is.
I think human nature, as you said, we are conditioned for survival. So because of that, we prioritize safety over opportunity again. So, and that is furthermore, I think, impacted for migrants, because naturally I feel they're moving like a country, but sometimes they forget to see how brave of a task that is to drop everything and move, rather than they just see the negative side of it. I don't have anything, I'm in a new country, I had to learn a new language, I don't have anyone, so immediately I just play it safe. So that means taking a step back, taking the safest
Yeah,
job opportunity that I can get to for survival.
absolutely.
So
And
I think
sometimes
that,
it's, there's family
yeah.
responsibilities, and there is a lot at stake. So, it is that safer option. And that's all got to be part of your consideration as well. It's like, maybe this is appropriate, or, actually, is there somewhere, I know I have these family responsibilities, but maybe I could just have a chat with people to see if maybe I don't actually need to do everything at home that I'm doing. Maybe some people can help out, but I've never actually asked anybody. But reclaiming that time yourself is really important. And one thing I want to say, Pen, I don't want to pretend that we live in this world that's so easy and equal for everybody. It really isn't. So there's a lot of systemic barriers that exist. And I think it's important to acknowledge that as well, because also sometimes we can think, I'm doing everything, and I have the skills, and I'm still not getting anywhere. And that is taken as a personal failure, when in fact the systems are made like that. And it really sucks. It really, really does suck. It also is a reality right now.
That's a hard truth.
It's a really
But
hard truth.
it's a really hard truth, but I wanted to understand like how it impacts your self-belief, because as you said, you bring up a really valid point, and that is really relevant, timely to today, because system is developed in such way to like as to be a barrier in your career or whatnot, especially for migrants. But when there are other factors, when it's the system and there are, let's say, 80% of the things in that system that you can't control, what is the impact of you determining or judging your self-worth because of a system that you can't control? Because I find that happening. I find people connecting with me after 6 months or years of trying on their self, when I really ask the deeper layers of why, the why part, it's just that they've added layers after layers of disbelief, and it has impacted their self-worth, so that they don't really trust their skills to really achieve and go through, pursue their goals. Oh, I want to touch on a bit, go deeper on the like the self-belief part. How does it impact
Look,
self-belief,
I
for
could
example?
definitely go on with this for a long time, but this is how these systems work as well, right? They begin to be self-regulated. So that's how awful some of the systems are, is that they are made to start doubting yourself, and then you're upholding the system, like, right? Because no one's saying anything when you're telling yourself that you're not good enough. Like, it's so that is where I love to work with people. And it honestly, I swear, everything comes back to this. Everything comes back to a self-worth and evaluation. And when you live in a world that does say that already just being born is not as good as someone else, like, look at me, I can't speak from this experience, Pan. I've really had a life of privilege. I did nothing. Just being born, I already was at a different level. And I didn't do anything. Nothing. You know?
Yeah.
So I will say that. And so it's something, it's a system that I definitely have been privileged to. And for me, that's something I work with people to understand, that this system's there's not a secret. It's people aren't smarter. People aren't better. They just have more belief in themselves because they've already started off with that. And so building up that belief in people, like just seeing your own value, like, man, even the visa system is really crappy. You know, it feels like people pay a goddamn lot of money to come here. This system is not about fairness, you know, it's about what Australia needs economically and how much money they can make, right? And so it's not like anyone landed here for free. There's been a lot of work that's gone into it, and people don't see or value that. That is a value, like the fact that you got yourself here, like there was a past version of you who wanted this so badly, and now you've got it, right? And that is a huge, massive, beautiful thing. And it can be powerful. And the more people we can empower with that,
it's really empowering. Great. It's really empowering you sharing that, because even when I migrated, immediately the very next day, I was just thinking, okay, what I'm going to do, finding a job, rather than just taking 5 minutes to be grateful, to be kind to myself, for going all through that, trying for 1 year, progressing in my career back home in Sri Lanka, getting promotions, studying while doing my work to get to the PR, or getting all these point system, paying for the visas, finding money for it, and leaving everything to move into a country with no relatives. I just had my friend. I'm lucky to have a friend when I moved in, but he was the only one. And I left everything. And if I had taken a little moment to say thank you to myself for taking that step, that will contribute to my self-worth a little better than just continuously going on that path of what's next, and how can I prove to others. Because I think also for migrant cultures, we have this reliance on external validation as well. So I had to prove my family back home, my friends back home, okay, I made it. Now I have to find a job to show that I'm earning in Australian dollars.
Yeah.
That adds more baggage to my suffering, I would say, of continuously trying to validate the externals rather than just being kind to myself. So
things are already hard enough. Like, you don't need to pile on that. You know, like, there's enough out there for you to wade through. Like, don't be your own bully. Don't do it. It's not nice. And, you know, I find that also, I've got a lot of clients that struggle with, you know, they find that they might be struggling at home and they're not really complaining, but sometimes you want to vent about things, right? Yeah. And it's really hard to do that with anybody who might be back in your home country, because they're like, oh, what are you moved to Australia? Like, what are you complaining about? Like, we've got it we're still suffering here, or, you know, whatever the situation is. Like, why? So they don't even really want to hear what you're saying. And so that can be really frustrating too. And so I think also knowing that sometimes you're venting, and I think that's where it can be really good to speak to professionals as well. You know, there's lots of EAP services in work, and unfortunately I know they don't value this kind of stuff, and some people will probably be a bit overwhelmed with it, but it's really okay to be struggling, because like you just literally almost leaped out of an aeroplane. Like, all of the things that you just mentioned is like, I'm tired and I've done nothing.
That's very empowering. I mean, I wish that some people will hear this conversation and have that mindset that it's okay to struggle. Even that you think that your family think, your friends think that you made it by just moving to a different country. The struggle, the emotions or your thoughts are universal, and it's just you can struggle wherever you are at, and it doesn't, like, I'm sure it fluctuates. So it's okay to struggle and it's okay to get help. And I'm so glad that there's people like you who are helping, like, these people and like people like us just to go through these barriers now.
And move through. That's what you said.
Move through.
It's moving through. You are going to move through this. Even if we do nothing, the nature of the world, of how the world works, it's timing, right? The sun rises, the sun sets. We get older, like we don't even do anything. We just get older. It's what happens. And so there is this natural rhythm of the world, and you are going to move through things. Nothing is permanent. Nothing, and some things take a bit longer to shift than others. That's also okay. We're all doing, none of us even, how wild's this, Pen? No one of us even asked to be born, right? And here we are doing the best we can, and then thinking it's our fault when it doesn't go the way we think it should.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you zoom out a bit and to see the world in that way, you tend to realize that change is the only impermanent thing, right? Change will happen, everything else changes. And nothing will last. And when you look at it in that way, sometimes the tiny struggles, it helps you move through it a little bit easier than before.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your insights. And one more thing I wanted to ask is, the next question is, why do migrants feel resistant to reach out? Or I would say, why do migrants feel a bit not confident reaching out to other people?
I feel like this is a good question I want to put back on you. Why? And I mean, of course, you don't represent every migrant, but why would you feel hesitant to reach out?
First of all, it's again my conditioning. Initially, when I reached out, like migrated here, I felt I was identified with my culture. So in my culture, I thought it's more of a hierarchical culture where I shouldn't be reaching out to someone, especially someone higher up in the hierarchy, unless I'm invited to. So that was the conditioning that I had when I moved into. So I thought hiring managers, recruiters are in the higher up. So especially decision makers, no, that's a no-no. So I thought it's disrespectful or unprofessional to reach out. But I didn't realize that it's totally like it's a condition, it's a thought process that I brought up when I migrated and then with my upbringing. And I do believe now, like after years of reflection and learning and understanding myself, that we are our like thoughts and our conditioning and the environment that we grew up with, right? Sometimes it's so difficult to disidentify yourself with your thoughts and the cultural or the values. But I realized that the other person is just another human, right? It's just another human who's trying to help you out, and by me reaching out, I'm gonna help them. It's actually a help, and I have helped many other people right now just that by breaking that barrier to reach out. And also the other part is the fear of judgment.
Yeah.
I believe most of our thoughts and decisions are fear-based. So for me, as a migrant, I had that fear of judgment, and I didn't want to face the rejection or being judged by reaching out to a stranger, Kat. So those are the things that restricted me by reaching out to a hiring manager, a recruiter, based on my beliefs of it's being disrespectful or like refraining myself of, being judged or being rejected.
Yeah, a bit of both. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that conditioning or that belief. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just done differently here in Australia, right? So that's the thing. It's like you're using a hammer when you really just need a paintbrush. You've got the wrong tool and you didn't know different, because it's not like Australians have it all figured out either. Like, I'll tell you, I've had both of those fears myself and still do. I even still hesitate reaching out to people because I think, oh God, am I going to annoy them? Like, maybe they'll think like, what is she doing? Like, she's a bit stupid. Like all of this stuff, the stuff that I teach people is the stuff that I have myself, because it's human nature. And there is nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with your beliefs. But like I said, it's just using the wrong tool in the wrong situation. And so because I think there's probably also an element maybe of it all goes back to fear. So there's pride that's above that fear, but underneath pride, it's like fear's just right underneath it. And it's making it look like pride, but actually it's fear. Because there actually was a time that, thankfully this is not the case anymore, but there was a time where if you did say something speak out in your community, you'd be excommunicated. And so you wouldn't get this share of food that you needed, you wouldn't get the psychological support, you wouldn't get anything that you needed. And so that was something that really actually was important. So people would learn not to speak out. And so it's not that you've just learnt this, like these beliefs, like your ancestors have been thinking this. We're not the first ones to have these thoughts. It's been going on for a long time, And so I think a lot of people in general struggle to reach out for help. And it really does come back to that one thing that you're saying. It's really this fear as being seen different, fear of not saying the right thing. And really, ultimately, what's fear? It's a feeling, right? And so the worst thing that could happen is that you feel a feeling. And feelings don't last forever. Nobody has cried forever. Nobody has laughed forever. Nobody has been angry forever. You don't get stuck in feelings, but the only way through them is to feel them as well. So that fear could be, it's something that you can acknowledge. You actually know it's going to happen. So take it with you. You're better off to make friends with that fear, whatever it is, if it's a voice, if it's just something that you're seeing, or however it presents to you. Sometimes it can be like a feeling in your body, It's interesting, like my shoulders are doing that thing, like I think I'm a bit scared of this, like, oh, it's okay, it's all right, like, thanks so much for warning me, but I've got this, like, I'm going to be okay. So that fear you don't tell it to go away, you just go, do you want to come with me? Like, thanks, you've done a good job. But, it's just like fear is it just has one job, and it's very good at that one job, but it's not so good at anything else, right? So sometimes you have to be like, okay, I got the message. I appreciate, like the fire alarms, everybody knows to just ignore a fire alarm these days, right? It's like, oh, that annoying noise. It always goes off even when I just burn the toast, and you don't listen to it. You don't get angry at it. You're just like, oh, let me turn that off. I know the house isn't burning down. It's the same with fear. It's going to set that alarm off in you. It's going to feel really real because it is real. It's a feeling. But when you feel it, it can then go away.
So powerful, Katrina. I think the lesson here is make fear your friend rather than your enemy. Right? You can't really run away with it. It's instilled in you. So just acknowledge it, understand it, and let it drive you to decisions rather than let it control you. I know it's easier said than done.
Way easier said than done. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
And you never get it done. You'll never finish this. You'll never get to a point where you're conquered your fear, or that doesn't happen, because life keeps changing as well. So that's why because it's a feeling. Our feelings don't go away. We can get better at recognizing them and knowing that, like, oh, I'm feeling this. Like we all know when we're hungry, when we need to eat, right? But sometimes look, even I forget that that's when I need to go. I get so angry that I forget, like, just eat something. And so sometimes I just have to check myself. Do I need a snack? Do I need to go outside? Like, what do I need to do right now? I'm feeling really angry in this moment. Let me just get up and move around. Or I'm feeling fearful. Do I need to bring something or somebody with me to help me with this? Do I need, to call somebody? Whatever you need to support you through that. It's just a feeling, but whatever you need to get through the feeling, get it. Like, if you need a stepladder to reach the thing on the top shelf, you get the stepladder. But most of us go, oh, I don't really, we feel this need that we have. We know we need a hug, but we're like, no, I don't need that. I'll be fine. Like, just take the damn hug. Just do the thing that makes you feel better in that moment. You don't have to, and it can be reaching out. It can be reaching out for support. It could be reaching out for other people. And as you said, we're just all humans. Every human has feelings. Even the ones that you think don't, they do.
Amazing. What are some, I'm curious to know, what are some actionable steps, like for someone who's listening, who's feeling fear about maybe it's in their job search or reaching out to, they know they have to do it, as you say, but they can't. Because they have the fear of not reaching out, like they're just constantly thinking about all the negatives, things can go wrong. You mentioned like a very practical tip around recognizing it. You can't get a, like, you know, eliminate it. It will be there, but you can recognize it. That's, I think, building a bit of awareness about your thoughts. What are things that someone can do to be a bit more aware, I would ask?
Yeah. So I always tell people that wherever you're feeling, just go one step easier. So there's a lot of kind of advice out there, well-meaning advice that we've talked about. That's like, just, you've got to push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's where the good stuff is. But if your comfort zone is so far over here that you're having panic attacks, that's not good advice, right? You're going to have a panic attack. That's not good. So by going one step easier, so if you're thinking about someone who's in the situation that you're saying, like not sure they need to reach out, but they just can't do it, that is not the time to reach out. So just go one step easier. It could be just if you were in front of your computer, just get some distance away from the computer and grab a pen and a paper and just start to ask yourself, what is this trying to tell me? Because this big feeling that you're feeling right now, it's trying to tell you something. It's trying to stop you from doing something. It's telling you, it's giving you a warning that something's going to happen. And what could come up? It could be something like, oh yeah, that time when I texted somebody and I really liked that person and they didn't reply to me. Actually, that you're still hurts, and that could be something that's blocking you. It could be, well, I already did this last week and the person didn't get back to me, and so why would I do it again? You know, and you get, these thoughts are happening so quickly that we don't know that that's actually what it is. So that's what you're trying to do when you're trying to write things out, and don't judge what's coming. And you write it in the language that works for you, because it's not for anybody else but for you. And it doesn't have to be a language. It could be written. It could be scribbles. It could be dots. It could be whatever. This is about you processing to get out, to try and find. And you might not find it, but what you're trying to do, if you're already so heightened, you're so like stressed about something, you're just trying to let that down. Let that down and let that down until you can actually maybe see something, you know, you can zoom out at that stage. Writing things down is so good, but the biggest key is do not judge it. So many people stop writing because they think that was stupid. Why did I write that? You have to not judge what comes out, because you're not writing an essay. You're not writing a book. This is not going to a publisher. I'm not going to read it. Pan's not going to read it. It's not getting published. You can burn it afterwards if you want to. The purpose is to just get out whatever that feeling is coming up for you.
That is amazing,
That's a big
because
one.
sometimes we are our biggest judges, right? And it's mostly into negative side. And as you said, practical, I think that's very practical advice. It's not the moment to reach out when you feel like that. Just listen to your body, the feeling, how you feel, and just write it down in whatever the way you would like to, but make sure that you don't judge what you're writing. That's really, really
Exactly. And
powerful
because it's
advice.
not going to be the thing. Like, we think if I don't do that, that's going to be the reason that my life will never work out. I'll never get married. I'll never have a baby. My grandkids are going to hate me, like that, you know, like you've already done all of this just because you didn't send that one message. It's never the reason. If you can't reach out, it's okay, but don't beat yourself up for it, because that doesn't help either.
That's powerful, powerful advice. Now, talking about reaching out, right? I know that a lot of migrants struggle getting help. This is getting help whenever they struggle emotionally, especially mental health. I find, even I'm openly saying, the country that I'm coming from has, like, this is very, like, you know, there's a stigma around it, and you carry it here, and especially when you need it more than ever. Especially me, I grew up in a more community like a based culture where there's always friends, family, mother, my relatives, my aunts, all there. So I didn't really have the need, even though I could have now, but here the environment changes. So I wanted to ask, what's the difference between counseling and coaching? This is like a topic that even I took longer to learn? Because I myself as a coach and Katrina, you're
Yeah.
a counselor, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious to ask this question from you. What's the difference between counselor and coach?
It's such a great one and it's so interesting. And I don't think it's either or. I think it's both is what's great. And I think you would do some counseling in your role. And I think I probably do some coaching as well. But I think fundamentally it's probably the approach that we take from it. So I would say that as a counselor, I'm looking at kind of what are the root causes, like what are the root beliefs. So if you think about a tree, I'm looking at like what are the how is it growing? Like, do we need to prune something so it's going to grow better? And then you're probably looking at the how we can get it like, okay, it's good now. And then a coach goes, this is where we can plant it. This is the fruit. Like, you're the expert on getting the best fruit. So I've got it, I can get it really stable so that base is solid. And then the coaching is more about forward, like what do we need to do right now to get the best fruit? And sometimes it goes in between. It's not like you just get the roots right and then it produces the best, fruit. You got to do a little bit of each. So I think it's probably that fundamental, that just the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's that fundamental thing of counseling looks like, and it's not, and I think this is a misconception. People kind of always think that like, oh, counseling's about your past and the trauma and you've got to go through all of the traumas that you've had and like, it's really awful. And that's not true. That's not true. It can just be sometimes like, because our beliefs get formed, but when we think one particular thought a lot, we form a belief. We think that that's what the truth is. And so a lot of those are formed in childhood, but they can be formed later as well. And so counseling is about looking at these beliefs and going, does that work for you now in this circumstance? Or is it something that maybe we have to look through at a different lens? Like, you've now got this Australian lens on that you're looking at things through, which I'm sure is really, really different and would maybe, doesn't mean the beliefs have to change. It's just like maybe there's a different angle on this now.
That's really fascinating, Katrina, because even in the beginning, I thought counseling is about all, as you said, past. And it's a common misconception, right?
Yeah.
That's always rooted in your working on your traumas, childhood beliefs. It goes to childhood where coaching is more present and future. But I do believe that there is an intersection, like it's not necessarily counseling goes back to just traumas or just identifying those past patterns, but also it can work in your present moment. Because as you mentioned, sometimes it's the angle, it's a lens. Like for an example, let's make it easier. Let's take a use case where, let's say, a migrant is struggling, right? You can't find a job, constantly feeling a bit overwhelmed and disbelief about yourself. And you're in Australia, like spent the last couple of months with no job offers or interviews, right? How does a counselor help this person who is like facing issues in like, okay, the job search strategy? I can add present moment, I can come in as a career coach, understand what are the, what is the approach that you have taken. I will look at the profile and surface level confidence about talking to people and a bit of counseling around mindset piece, right? But how
Yeah.
would you approach this person in terms of like, helping the overall well-being to get from the fears or the other issues that they're facing?
Yeah, I think I would look at, so I'm just also thinking like, how would I know the difference if someone comes to me to maybe potentially work with me as a counselor, or sometimes I can think, oh no, I actually need to go talk to Pan, that he's definitely your guy. Mm-hmm. And so that would be so if somebody's, because I'm sure you've got the most amazing strategies, right? And if you're giving those to people and they're just having no traction at all, you've spelt it out for them A, B, C, and D, and they're just not able to implement those things, that's when I know that there's something a little bit deeper that needs to be kind of worked on or dug out a little bit. Yep. Because I tell you, the people I work with are so freaking smart. They're smarter than me. They're like, and I'm not saying that they're definitely really smart people, but this emotional piece can be the stuff. And so I would look into what's the things, I listen to stuff that's getting repeated. Like, oh, you mentioned it's difficult to talk up in relationships, and you've also said this about at work, and you also said this about your friendship group, or so I can pull those things to say, hey, did you notice that you mentioned this thing in pretty much every area. It seems like there's a very similar topic coming up. That's where I would work to see, okay, where else is this showing up for you? Is there somewhere else that you find it hard to implement things? How long's that been going on for? Oh, it's always happened. Okay, has it always been always? Or can we find out when the time is? Because everyone knows how great data is, but we don't actually look at our own data to say, because we'll say, it's like emotions. People love to say everything's terrible and it's awful and I hate my life. And it's like, is it? Or is it just Wednesday mornings when you've got to do that stand-up meeting that you really don't like? So that's what I would do, work with someone to pinpoint what's really going on, because that also helps you realize, there's a lot of good stuff. It's not 100%, it's not 90%, it's actually 10%. And I was just using that brush on everything.
That's amazing. And I could have explained it better, Katrina, because I find, firsthand experience helping migrants with the surface level strategies. Sometimes I find no matter what the strategy I share, I do find that sometimes, most cases, most migrants, most job seekers or humans do need that support, emotional support to address these barriers. Whether it's walking into an interview, reaching out to someone, or maybe just applying. Sometimes, for an example, they have the most amazing resume, as you said, it's not intelligence. It's much more deeper than that. And I believe humans have evolved in intelligence, but not so much in consciousness, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you have the amazing resume, but you're still sitting here being fearful about what other people might think and just not refraining yourself taking action and thinking I'm not qualified for this job role. And it keeps happening. So for your role as a counselor is identifying that patterns of why this happens. Is it just you as a person, or what are the beliefs or maybe experiences that is contributing to this mindset?
Exactly. And then it's, what are the ways are you reinforcing those to yourself? Is it is it social media? Are you viewing something that reinforces that belief for you? So it feels like the truth, but it's not. We have control over what we read, what we watch on TV, we have to be really careful. The advice we take from well-meaning friends, that's all really important to guard and to know that whether this is going to help me move towards something that I want. Because at the end of the day, it's like you individual one, we matter the most. It's who it's the person we're going to spend the longest time with in this world. And so we've really got to be our own advocates. And I was thinking as you were talking about, people do find it difficult to reach out. And I think probably as a society, we made this kind of the be all and end all is reaching out, you just need to reach out to somebody. And we've forgotten that, help can look like all sorts of different things. It could look like going to see a movie with a friend after your interview, right? It could look like going for a swim. It could look like going for a bike ride, whatever brings you joy. But having those things booked in after that, so you've got an interview, that's probably going to be tricky. Let me book something in afterwards. Because naturally we do these things, but we just don't value them. And if I think about your situation, you came to Australia, you only had one friend, and it's like, what did you do after an interview? Because normally if there was a lot of people around you, friends, family, sometimes it's just knowing the person who's making your coffee. That can also be a form of self-help, because you're just going and connecting with someone. So when you move somewhere where you've taken out all of your connections, that's really, really difficult. That's really difficult, because that's what those connections served, was just a soft landing place for you.
That's I think it relates to me so much, because I remember one of my first friends in Australia was the coffee shop owner nearby in a coffee truck. So I started going into my part-time job. I took this train station, and next to this train station there was this coffee truck. So I was saying hi. That was my first encounter with the Australian coffee, and fell in love with it. But I started making that connection outside that one friend that I had. So just it's a matter of saying hi, just saying hi, and then just coming back.
Yeah,
I'm seeing him wrapping up the day to the business to the for the day. Just having the connection, because as you said, it's a lot to drop everything just to start something on your own, just your life in a whole different country, and having that kind of,
exactly.
yeah. So
And those micro connections are vital. We all learned during lockdowns, during COVID. I think we didn't realize we were just feeling bad. It was like, why am I feeling bad? Because you're missing all of those moments. You know, the moment where someone just used to hold the door open for you, every little bit contributes to your tank. And so we had nothing. And so those little moments are really important. And sometimes we have to engineer them for ourselves. We have to say, I am going to get a coffee, not because, I mean, I love coffee, so I'll get a coffee at any time. But it's not, for me, and I say that, it's not just the coffee. For me, it's the experience and the exchange with another person. Sometimes I can make a joke, sometimes not. You know, like even it can just be noticing, hey, like, are you okay? And that can help you when you're actually asking somebody else about themselves. You know, and you just got to believe that those people, although sometimes we think, I don't think they even notice me, you just have to believe that, of course they do. You're valuing this, and there's a very big chance that they value that as well.
amazing. I think I love that how you said it, engineer yourself. So I think it's a brilliant way to finish our conversation, Katrina. Like we talked about a lot about migrants, and one of the key highlights was that you said be an advocate for yourself. That's so powerful for anyone who's listening. I think it's such an invigorating and meaningful, very insightful conversation. I'm really, really grateful for this amazing chat. I'm sure we
Oh,
are going to
thank
have many
you.
more like this. So I'm truly thankful for your time.
It's a love having conversations like this. I think it's so important. And the more that we just talk about things and normalize things, it's so important that we do talk about things and in a constructive way where we can. And sometimes we say, you know what, like, oh God, that was tough, or things are tough. And if things are tough, don't like go take a break.
Take a break. Now it's time for us to take a break, but thanks
Yeah,
so much,
definitely.
Katrina, again. Thanks so much. Yeah, we'll catch up again soon.
My
And
pleasure. I look forward to it.